Did you know that just a few days into the 2026 FIFA World Cup, one national team has already made history for all the wrong reasons? Yes, you heard that right. Not because they won a trophy, not because they pulled off a shocking upset, but because they became the first country in the entire history of the FIFA World Cup to fire their head coach after just one match, one game, 90 minutes. And suddenly, a manager who was supposed to lead his nation through the biggest tournament on earth was packing his bags. At first glance, it looks like an overreaction, but when you look deeper into what was happening behind the scenes, the story becomes far more complicated than a simple 5-1 defeat. Everything started in Monterrey, Mexico, where Tunisia opened their 2026 FIFA World Cup campaign against Sweden. The expectations were already modest. Tunisia knew they were entering a difficult group, but nobody expected what happened next. From the opening whistle, Sweden looked faster, sharper, and far more organized. Tunisia struggled to defend, struggled to keep possession, and struggled to create meaningful chances. By the end of the night, the scoreboard showed a brutal result. Sweden 5, Tunisia 1. One of the heaviest defeats Tunisia has ever suffered at a World Cup. What made the result even more painful was one particular name on the score sheet. Yassine Ayari scored twice for Sweden. Normally that would simply be another great performance by a young player, but Ayari's father was born in Tunisia, so on one of the biggest nights in Tunisian football, a player with Tunisian roots helped dismantle the country of his own family's heritage. It was the kind of football story that almost feels scripted, and it only added to the frustration surrounding the result. After the match, head coach Sabri Lamouchi appeared visibly disappointed. Speaking to reporters, he described the performance as painful and admitted that Tunisia had made too many mistakes. He said the team was hurting itself and failing to execute basic responsibilities. At the time, many fans assumed these were simply the comments of a frustrated coach after a difficult defeat. But within hours, those comments would take on a completely different meaning. Because while Lamouchi was speaking publicly about mistakes on the pitch, bigger problems were already unfolding behind closed doors. The reality is that Tunisia's decision was not solely about losing to Sweden. In many ways, the defeat simply accelerated a process that was already underway. Long before the World Cup began, serious concerns had emerged regarding Tunisia's performances under Lamouchi. Since taking charge, results had been disappointing. His only victory came against Haiti. Outside of that, Tunisia struggled to build momentum and consistency. Friendly matches before the tournament only increased concerns. A narrow defeat against Austria raised questions, but the real warning sign came when Belgium demolished Tunisia 5-0. Suddenly, people inside and outside the federation began wondering whether the team was heading into the World Cup completely unprepared. As poor results continued, reports suggested that tensions were beginning to grow inside the squad. Confidence in the coaching staff appeared to be fading. During the Sweden match, television cameras captured visible frustration from players as substitutions were made and the game slipped further away. When a team starts publicly showing signs of frustration during a World Cup match, it often indicates deeper problems behind the scenes. And according to several reports, those problems were already becoming impossible to ignore. Then came another controversy. During Tunisia's World Cup preparations, reports emerged that Lamouchi had allowed his son access to the team's training environment. While that might not sound significant on its own, Federation officials reportedly questioned the decision and sought explanations. The issue created further tension between the coaching staff and football authorities. Whether it was a major factor or simply another symptom of a deteriorating relationship remains unclear, but it added another layer to an already fragile situation. Trust was beginning to disappear, and in international football, trust is often the first thing that collapses before major changes occur. By the time Tunisia walked onto the field against Sweden, the pressure surrounding Lamouchi had already reached dangerous levels. The 5-1 defeat didn't create the crisis, it simply exposed it to the entire world. The federation now faced a choice: continue with a manager who was struggling to produce results, losing support, and facing growing scrutiny, or make a dramatic decision in the middle of the tournament. They chose the second option, and in doing so, they entered the history books. What makes this decision so remarkable is that nothing like it has ever happened before at a FIFA World Cup. Coaches have been fired before, some have lost their jobs after disastrous group stages. Others have been removed after multiple defeats. There have even been managers dismissed shortly before tournaments began, but never after a single match. Not once in nearly a century of World Cup history, Tunisia became the first nation ever to pull the trigger after just 90 minutes of tournament football. And perhaps the most surprising part is how quickly Tunisia found a replacement. Rather than appointing an interim coach, they turned to one of the most experienced managers in international football, Hervé Renard. For football fans, Renard is a familiar face. The French manager has built a reputation for succeeding in difficult situations and producing unexpected results. He led Morocco at the World Cup, he led Saudi Arabia at the World Cup, and in 2022, he became globally famous after guiding Saudi Arabia to a stunning victory over Lionel Messi's Argentina, a result many consider one of the greatest upsets in football history. Now Tunisia hopes he can perform another miracle, but the challenge facing Renard is enormous. He arrives with almost no preparation time, no opportunity to build chemistry, and no chance to implement implement long-term tactical ideas. Instead, he must immediately repair confidence inside a dressing room that has just witnessed one of the most dramatic coaching changes in World Cup history, and the schedule offers no mercy. Tunisia's remaining group stage matches are against Japan and the Netherlands. Both teams are capable of controlling games, exploiting defensive mistakes, and punishing opponents who lack organization. Renard's first task isn't necessarily winning, it's stopping the chaos. He must convince players to believe again, restore stability, and somehow keep Tunisia's World Cup hopes alive despite the circumstances. The situation has also sparked a wider debate among football fans. Some believe Tunisia made the correct decision. They argue that when a project is clearly failing, acting quickly can prevent further damage. From their perspective, waiting longer would only have guaranteed elimination. Others believe the federation panicked. They argue that firing a coach after one match sends the wrong message and creates even more instability during the most important competition in football. The truth is that nobody knows which side is right yet. Football history is filled with examples where bold decisions changed everything. It is also filled with examples where panic made situations even worse. Tunisia is now gambling that this unprecedented move will save their tournament rather than destroy it. If Renard succeeds, the federation will be praised for its courage. If Tunisia continues to struggle, this decision could become one of the most controversial coaching changes the World Cup has ever seen. But perhaps the bigger story goes beyond Tunisia itself, because this moment highlights how much pressure now exists in modern international football. National teams spend years preparing for the World Cup. Millions of fans invest their hopes in these tournaments. Federations invest enormous resources, and when expectations collide with poor performances, patience often disappears. What once took months now happens in days. What once required multiple failures now happens after a single night. And that's why this story matters. It isn't just about one coach losing his job. It's about the growing pressure surrounding the world's biggest sporting event. It's about what happens when expectations become impossible to meet. And it's about a tournament that has already delivered one of the most extraordinary managerial stories in football history before the group stage is even over. So now the question is simple. Did Tunisia make a bold decision that could rescue their World Cup campaign? Or did they press the panic button too early and risk destroying what little stability remained? As the tournament continues and Hervé Renard takes charge, the answer will reveal itself soon enough. But one thing is already certain.